Alright, so last video I talked about the addition of sheet music mode and the final two instruments for the Yousician app, resulting in a total collection of 5 instruments that could be played, that could be learned via the same app: guitar, uke, piano, bass, and voice. While no more instruments were added, the team was still busy improving Yousician. The curriculum continued to be revised. The developers vastly improved the feasibility of the learning curve so that users won't hit brick walls like I did early on. Short trainers were added that would give you the opportunity to practice bits of songs before being faced with the whole song, which is a pretty helpful idea from the standpoint of proper practice methodology. The latest update that I've seen is that the Yousician company is no longer called Ovalin. The Yousician company has actually released a new app, a separate app for iPad and iPhone called Campfire. It's a subscription-only tool/game. You can sample it for something like half an hour's worth of content. I sampled it a while back. I haven't seen the whole subscription mode. I haven't paid for it to see it. It appears to be a more streamlined and kind of a no-nonsense version of the guitar gaming experience. It's got a very appealing minimalist interface that actually looks more like a web page or an instructional app than a traditional game. The gameplay screen is a chord chart, much like the kind of chord chart you'd expect to find if you just Googled your favorite song. But then under every chord, it has a number of dots, let's say 3 or 4 dots, for the number of times you strum. And then apart from that, you're basically strumming open chords to a chord chart. Pretty cool app. Not cool enough for me to pay for it, but pretty cool still. It provides a feel that's more down to earth and real than the very distinctive flavor of the colorful game world of Yousician. So now that we're up to the modern day, what about competition and alternatives? First off, Rocksmith remained the primary competitor for Yousician, having not only its 2014 version, but more importantly, the subscription product Rocksmith Plus, released in 2022, which works with smartphones and tablets and runs off a subscription service. I haven't tried it yet myself, but one of these days I'm going to get a free trial and give it a whirl. There's also an app series under the Simply title, including Simply Guitar and Simply Piano. I tried one of their older versions a long time ago and I didn't like it. I recently tried their current version of Simply Guitar and it looks pretty good, though there wasn't a whole lot that you could see without paying for the subscription. But in terms of their style and intended audience, it looks like it's kind of aimed at children and families. And from what I saw of the actual game, it looks like they do a very good job of reaching their audience by making learning curves very light and emphasizing a fun and interaction-rich learning environment. There are also a number of piano learning apps that function more or less like Yousician Piano. While I haven't seen any that are both free to play and use actual sheet music, there are a couple free to use piano learning apps that don't have a set curriculum, but they let you learn songs. There are also a number of very high quality products based on a modest subscription plan, which would be quite worth it if that's the direction you want to go. A year or two ago, I discovered a new app for guitar called Timbro. And I don't know if that's how they intend it to be pronounced, because obviously if it was timbre, it'd be pronounced timbre. So I'll just call it Timbro. I downloaded it and discovered it was basically a reimagined version of Yousician created on a lighter budget. I was pretty excited. It's the first time I've seen something like that. The more I played it, I came to realize it was actually much more intentionally developed in terms of nuanced approaches to effective practice. So I'll give you a quick rundown. First off, some obvious things that are missing that Yousician has that Timbro doesn't. Timbro doesn't give you full bands to play along with. It usually has you playing guitar songs along with some very basic piano or guitar accompaniment. Timbro doesn't have multiple instruments available, just guitar, and it doesn't have sheet music mode, just tab. Now the pluses. Why is it that I'm continually impressed by Timbro even though I'm a long-term Yousician fan? First, the learning curve. Whereas Yousician has been improving in terms of how well it works to keep you from hitting a wall, it's definitely got some clunky bits where many users will probably hit a wall. And those trainers in Yousician tend to be downright annoying. In contrast, Timbro so far seems to be excellent at making sure that lessons don't become too difficult too fast, making sure that you practice things before playing them. Whereas in Yousician, I always found and find the forced repetition of little movements to be just annoying and unnecessary in how they do it, full of these long pauses and weird, annoying bits. On the other hand, in Timbro, they do it in such a way that it's just relaxing and fun. They just show you something, you play it, and then you get the next bit. Timbro also features an automatic play button, which treats you to a pre-selected combination of exercises and learning content in any given training session. So instead of trudging through your various options and curriculum paths, picking which way to go, with pauses in between each thing you do, instead of that, you just hit play, and the app decides what's next and throws something at you. So that feature there makes gameplay seamless and enjoyable even at the end of a tiring workday, and feeds you with a lot of the kind of healthy repetition that's perfect for a relaxing training session for your fingers and for good muscle memory. Now, the part of Timbro that makes Yousician pale in comparison is how they approach ear training. Whereas Yousician has some absolutely terrible ear training modules. I mean, maybe you enjoy them. If you do, great. I hate them. They give me a headache every time I see them. Timbro, on the other hand, has a fun mode in which it regularly gives you a short session of ear training simply by, basically it indicates what position to put your hands in. It gives you a picture of the fretboard and says, here are your spots that you're at. And then it plays a tone and waits for you to play it back. And that feature, it's just got this kind of beautiful simplicity that, for me, I just find relaxing and fun, while it's actually expanding your ear training within the context of the actual guitar fretboard you're playing on. Timbro does have very few videos, and I doubt the ones it has have a lot of content. I've never watched them. I doubt Timbro would work well as somebody's only guitar learning tool. But it's definitely worth checking out as something fun to throw on at the end of a tiring workday. Now, to be fair, in the same sense, I wouldn't risk using Yousician as your sole guitar learning tool either. While they have very good educational content, I'd be very hesitant to trust your guitar learning journey to Yousician alone. As a little story for an example of why I think that, when I bought my first bass a couple of years ago, I decided to just buy it for fun and use it exclusively with Yousician. Not teach myself, but just use it with Yousician and be taught by Yousician. But before long, I was finding myself confused because they didn't give enough information about how and when to alternate fingers and other important factors about playing bass effectively without learning bad habits. So finally, I made the decision to abandon my plan to use my bass just as a Yousician toy, because even though it was just a toy, I don't want to learn wrong technique and make things difficult for myself in the future. So I went and read some articles, watched some videos on learning bass, and then finally I went and bought a book. I bought the Hal Leonard Bass Method. And I continue to use Yousician as a practice aid and as a fun game, now and again. So that's it. A little bit of the history of Yousician, the history of gamified music apps, and a little bit of my personal experience. I wonder what's next with Yousician and the world of gamified music apps. I'm still hoping for Yousician for violin to come out, now that I actually play violin a little bit as well. But I must admit, since it's been so long since that feedback forum had the request float up to the top, since it's been so long, I'm not sure if I should hold my breath. In years past, I just assumed it was probably in development, and they were just working hard trying to find unique and creative ways to make the interface effective. But by this point, I've given up hope about expecting any new instruments for Yousician, or about expecting sheet music to come in for singing mode, or additional levels for singing mode, or the addition of an actual sheet music curriculum for the fretted instruments like guitar. But I'm not complaining. I love Yousician, and lately I've been using it more regularly in addition to Timbro and some other tools. And it's nice to just have something interactive and fun to throw into my practice routine now and again. And Timbro includes a number of exercises that I wouldn't have thought to do otherwise, as well as Yousician, which recently added, or at some point I didn't notice it, and then I realized that Yousician as well has an exercises mode. At the end of the day, a game is never going to replace conscious, intentional music practice and self-teaching. That's because the game isn't you. All it can do is throw stuff at you. The game, whether it's Rocksmith, Simply Guitar, Yousician, or Timbro, the game is your practice buddy, the rockin' robot. He's trying to make you a little more of a robot like him in the best ways. So let him, because he's never going to become a human like you in the most important way.